Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, and of course, honored experts in the field of precision medicine. It's really a true pleasure to welcome you to this distinguished, what we call it already, annual event. Today, we came here for good reasons. We came here to explore, to celebrate the latest advancements in precision medicine, which tends to be a really revolutionary potential field in healthcare. Our shared commitment to tailor the treatments to individual patients has very transformative potential to change the healthcare as we know it. Really warm welcome to everybody in this Precision Medicine Networking Forum, the event which aims to be a biggest, I would say, not scientific, but multi-stakeholder annual assembly for Nordic and Baltics. And today we are joined by more than 50 speakers, more than 600 registered delegates, more than 20 countries are represented here. And we look forward for 2 fantastic days with multiple sessions, so including the parallel sessions, so some of you will have a hard choice to make a decision where to participate. There will be an expo area, there will be several satellite symposia, so multiple choices. Over the course of this conference, I hope we will engage in very meaningful discussions. We will share the insights, we will collaborate on strategies, the strategies that will certainly shape the future of precision medicine. I'm sure it will be true networking for all of the stakeholders, academia, healthcare providers, industry, government, NGOs, and of course the patients. So please do not miss that opportunity to network. But whatever the topic or wherever the topic or conversation would lead, let's not to forget the mission to serve the patients. So because the aim of this network and of this forum is to promote evolution and adoption of precision medicine in order to improve the patient care and treatment outcomes. Therefore, over these 2 days, we will do the multiple things. We'll find the ways how to promote the concept of precision medicine. We'll look how to identify the opportunities to do the research, the education and training in precision medicine. We'll look how to facilitate the cross-disciplinary and also cross-border cooperations and collaborations. We will share knowledge, the latest developments, the trends, success stories. We need to build awareness about the precision medicine among multiple stakeholders and also in the patient and just the population, the community. And we also need to promote from very beginning the equal access to precision medicine so that benefits are reaching all of the patients in need. I really encourage you to active participation in the sessions, engage in these meaningful conversations outside the sessions, foster the connections that will hopefully drive the progress of this dynamic field. So let us start this journey of discovery and innovation. Let us be united by our passion to help the patients, and that's like kickoff of the conference. So thank you for being in this vital dialogue, and I'm really looking forward for this exciting meeting and discussions that lie ahead. So thank you for being here. And now it's my pleasure to introduce actually the pivotal figure in the organization of this Precision Medicine Conference, our esteemed Vice-Rector of Stradins University and also dedicated co-organizer of this event, Ms. Agrita Kiopa. Agrita's visionary leadership has been actually instrumental in making the conference possible. So Agrita plays crucial role in fostering innovations, fostering research and collaborations within a broader academic and healthcare community. So her support really have helped to guide, to shape the agenda of this conference, ensuring that it reflects the latest developments in precision medicine. So please join me in extending this warm welcome to Vice-Rector Agrita Kiopa.
Thank you, Valts, about the kind introduction. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Minister of Health, Minister of Economy, Mrs. State Secretary of Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, Rector of my university, Riga Stradins University. It is a great honor to welcome everybody here in Riga. It is a great honor to welcome all the bright minds who are here and who are committed to the precision medicine. As a Vice-Rector for Science of Riga Stradins University, I'm particularly happy and also proud that our university has been at the core of organizing and creating this network. We have been at the core of organizing team since the inception of network, and our faculty members from Faculty of Medicine, from our Institute of Oncology, from our laboratories of radiology, bioinformatics, and molecular biology have been involved in creation of the content. You will meet very key players, very dedicated people in the session, starting from our professor Sandra Lainiece, who is also a key person in developing a cancer program, national cancer program here in our country. Similarly, the Associated Professor Maija Radziņa, who is one of the key people in radiology. Similarly, our researchers, our young researchers, Inese Čaksteņa, Kārlis Rācenis, Zanda Danaberga, Linda Gailīte. Please meet them. Please have a chance to talk to them. They are key people in moving forward the precision medicine. Our broad participation here in this network, in this forum, also manifests our core value. We are a human-centered university. For us, each and every person and ultimately every patient is important. This is a second forum of the precision medicine. The first forum took place last year in the premises of our university and gave impetus to many new initiatives and developments. And let me name a few. First, as we can see, and also we can see on the map, a network really has been established. And it is thanks to generous contribution and efforts of John Tully and his team that moved forward the whole idea, but also our colleagues from Latvian Investment and Development Agency who incorporated our network into RIS3 or Smart Specialization community and also helped us to move forward with some of our initiatives. Second, two new research funding programs have been launched, one from Ministry of Economy, one from Ministry of Health. That funding allows us to finance some of the research that we do that is related to the precision ministry. Third, we have launched a new digital skills program at our university to introduce new content into medical curricula at our university that will better equip our students and future doctors with the competences that are necessary for precision medicine. As we all know, an approach to tailoring disease prevention and treatment in a way that considers differences in people's genes, environments, and lifestyles. The new study courses will introduce new content on health systems, health data, data analysis, also advanced imaging, advanced genetics, together with the highest level of digital skills. We will provide those courses both for students and industry. But most importantly, new collaborations have been established. Following the last year's forum, the broader delegations from our university and from the community of the forum went to United States, to Israel, and other places to meet new people, to network, to establish new collaborations and connections. As a result, this year's forum is already much richer, much broader, and with a greater reach. And we have 50 plus speakers, 600 registered participants from 20 plus countries. We will also sign two important collaboration agreements for the National Biomedical Research Platform and for International Consortium on Latvian Children's Tumor Bank. I'm sure that this will allow us to do even more. As PMNET founding university, we are very well aware that the current situation in Latvia and in many, has many capacity limitations. But we see that those issues can be solved even though not overnight, of course. As this event reaffirms, it is vitally important to connect scientists, clinicians, policymakers, and NGOs of our region and beyond. Our capacity to provide personalized treatment requires data analysis, communication, and also collaborative response. I believe that this will be the focus of upcoming 2 days here at PMNET Forum. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, let me once again congratulate you on this event. A fantastic program and speakers await for you. And I wish you a rewarding meeting and very pleasant stay here in Riga. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Agrita. And now it's my distinct privilege to introduce the really esteemed guest who I'm sure will become a driving force in advancing the precision medicine on a national level. So the welcome words will be delivered by the dedicated physician, but also the politician and advocate for improving the health and well-being of the citizens through innovative and also personalized approaches to healthcare. So the Hosams Meri, the Latvian Minister of Health, from the very first days in his role, aims to be at the forefront of the health policy and is playing really instrumental role in shaping the future of healthcare advancements. So under Hosams Meri leadership, we foresee the significant investments in healthcare and the implementation of policies that will promote the access to the best care for every individual patient. So please join me in extending those warm welcome to Mr. Hosams Meri.
Thank you, Valts, and good morning, Labrit, Visiem. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear friends, I'm really deeply honored to stand here with you today and highlight the incredible promise of precision medicine, one of the most transformative and promising advancement in the field of healthcare. The importance of PM cannot be overstated. It's a shift toward personalized healthcare, moving away from one-size-fits-all approaches to data-driven model of healthcare. We open the door to treatments that are not only more effective, but also less likely to cause adverse effects and complications. But what powers the engine of precision medicine? It's a lot: artificial intelligence, an indispensable tool that is reshaping the landscape of healthcare as we know it. Artificial intelligence is a key ally, but it's most powerful when in hands of skilled specialists like you, for instance. Your expertise, combined with artificial intelligence capabilities, can enable the highest quality in early disease detection and diagnosis, helping healthcare providers identify high-risk patients and cutting costs. Artificial intelligence is not here to replace our healthcare professionals and employees. It's about working smarter and not harder. It doesn't stop there. Big data analysis in precision medicine is improving population health management, identifying trends. This patient-centric approach is paving the way for a healthier and more resilient society. We embrace a shift toward wider patient engagement, empowering individuals to actively participate in their healthcare journey leads to better outcomes and better results and more efficient healthcare system. It's a way toward partnership and better healthcare for all. We stand the threshold of a new era in healthcare. Precision medicine, artificial intelligence, big data, and patient engagement are transforming our healthcare landscape. Let's go to this journey together to a healthier, more equitable, and patient-centered future. And I would like to wish you today a fruitful discussion and a great day. Thank you very much.
So, thank you, Mr. Meri, for this inspirational address. So now I'm pleased to introduce the distinguished guest whose role is our nation's economic landscape guidance. So we look forward to welcome address from Mr. Viktors Valainis, who serves as the Minister of Economy for Latvia. So I believe that Mr. Valainis will serve as a really strong advocate for innovation and investment in cutting-edge technologies, including those in the field of precision medicine. The vision of Mr. Valainis for robust economical development is very closely aligned with the growth potential of precision medicine, recognizing also all of the economic benefits it brings in job creation, in industry expansion, and also the global competitiveness. So please join me in extending the warm welcome to Mr. Viktors Valainis.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to be here as a Minister of Economics, a position that underscores the link between science, technology, and economic advancement in our society, including within the context of this important Precision Medicine Forum. First and foremost, I wanted to thank the organizing team and the private entities whose tireless dedication and vision have brought us together at this forum. Your hard work and commitment have transformed this gathering into a leading place of knowledge and innovation for precision medicine in Latvia and macro region. The fact that Riga is hosting such a major forum underscores the vast opportunities and the presence of extension healthcare specialists, scientists, and innovators in the precision medicine field with our region. It speaks to our collective dedication to advancing healthcare and harnessing the potential of precision medicine for the good of society. Furthermore, when the population enjoys better health, the overall quality of life and opportunities in the labor markets improve, thereby contributing to greater social stability. These elements are crucial for continuous economic growth and lasting prosperity. As the Ministry of Economics, we are committed to fostering innovation by providing support to innovative businesses, applied science, as well as collaboration between the business and the scientific sector for development of innovative products and technologies in the fields of biomedicine, medical technology, including precision medicine. In conclusion, I express my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for your dedication to advancing the field of precision medicine. Together, let's foster an environment of collaboration and innovation, developing precision medicine to the forefront of healthcare and shaping a future with tailored treatments and improved outcomes. Thank you, and I look forward to enlightening discussions and collaborations that will undoubtedly shape the future of medicine at this forum. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Valainis, for this kind address and the confirmation of your commitment to support the future of precision medicine in our country. And now, yes, it's my really distinct pleasure to introduce a remarkable individual who has not only been the visionary supporter, but also, I would say, the sole driving force behind this Precision Medicine Forum. That was his idea. Our main charitable contributor and initiator, John Martin Tully, embodies profound commitment to advance the healthcare and research. John has generally contributed his resources, his passion, his dedication to making this networking forum a reality, but also many, many other similar things. His philanthropic endeavors have really profound impact in the field of medicine, in the field of precision medicine, enabling the critical research, supporting the technological advancements, and supporting the dissemination of the knowledge, including the privilege that we are here today. So today's conference is a true testament to transformative power of John's vision and generosity. I'm personally deeply grateful to John's commitment also to improve the pediatric oncology care by catalyzing the progress in precision medicine. So please join me in extending our heartfelt gratitude to John Tully, whose commitment is really the cause to inspire us all.
Thank you, Valts. You've done an incredible job. I'd like to thank the team that is working on this event, and the importance of us getting together, because to promote precision medicine, to promote diagnostics, better health care, because this is something that affects your friends, family. We're all human. So I think this group is working on one of the most important areas, and with technology and with learning and with cooperation and networking and coming together and finding partnerships and friends and cooperation, that we're looking forward to what you all do in the future and moving medicine and precision medicine forward. Thank you.
John, thanks once again for this opportunity. Well, we are now done with the welcome speeches, and we are ready to get down to the business. And now it's my both the privilege and pleasure to introduce our distinguished keynote speaker for today. I would say the true luminary in the field of genetics and precision medicine. So Professor Robert Green is a renowned expert from Harvard Medical School. He dedicated his career to uncover all of the mysteries of genetic code and harnessing the knowledge for the betterment and improvement of healthcare. Professor Green's research has pushed the boundaries of what we currently understand about the genomics and its application in clinical practice. His works not only advances our understanding of genetics, but also paves the way for practical implementations of precision medicine, offering the hope and improved outcomes to countless patients around the world. Today we are honored to have Professor Green share his insights and also his wisdom with us. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Professor Robert Green.
Thank you so much. This is a real honor to be here. Ministers, the leaders of this conference, everyone who's welcomed me so much to this beautiful city. I've never been here before, but it's been an honor and a privilege, and I can't wait to talk to you more individually as we've started to do already. I'll jump right in, and I'm going to go quickly because if you want any of these slides, I'm happy to send them to you, but I have a lot to tell you about. In the universe of precision medicine, genomics is just one portion. There's everything. There's smart watches. There's the Oura ring that Walt's wearing. There's smart diapers for your babies. There's big data of all stripes. There's artificial intelligence, as you've heard. But genomics remains one of the tip of the spear for precision medicine. And its power, my thesis is that its power is underutilized today. And when I finish this talk, I hope you might actually go home and think to yourself, why is it that I'm not actually using my genomics in my everyday health care, whether you're a clinician, using it with your patients, or a human being using it for yourself. And so there is the entire universe of precision medicine, but I'm going to speak to you today about one focus within that, which is genomics, and particularly preventive genomics. The idea that we could, all of us, today, right now, understand what's in our genome, and for some of us, it would be life-saving. So I am supported in my country by the National Institutes of Health. I consult to several companies, and I have co-founded 2 companies in the United States, including Nurture Genomics, which has just come out of stealth this week, and for which we are looking for angel investors and strategic investors, if you know anybody. Now look, the traditional historical medical genetics focuses upon what we might call indication-based care, the idea that there is a problem and we want to diagnose it with DNA. And this has now grown into a number of things: diagnosis of rare conditions, limited preconception screening, follow-up for metabolic newborn screening, prenatal screening for aneuploidy. If you know something's running in your family, you can take some testing for other relatives. And of course, the entire huge area of precision medicine in cancer treatment, none of which I'm going to talk about today. What I'm really going to talk about today is this next phase of potential for genetic testing, which in my mind includes all of these categories of newborn sequencing, polygenic risk scores, prenatal sequencing, expanded carrier testing, and pharmacogenomics, but most of all, population screening. The idea that you and me should all have our genome done. And where are we heading with this? We're heading to a world where we will be able to anticipate and treat genetics with gene and cell therapies, which are today extremely difficult and expensive, but tomorrow will become part of our armamentarium. And we know genomics is not the entire answer, but genomics is one slice of the world in which we have to put big data together in order to create the matrix of data, which is precision medicine. So when we ask ourselves, and I had the privilege of sitting down with the genetics at the Children's Hospital yesterday, and we ask ourselves together, why is genomics, preventive genomics, not in use today? And in a somewhat lighthearted way, I think that these are the principal reasons. We've created a technology that we are actually afraid of. We are afraid that genomic information is going to be somehow toxic, this narrative of catastrophic psychological distress. We are rightfully afraid of privacy and discrimination concerns, although I would argue that we have over-indexed on those concerns. We are rightfully concerned that participants, patients, and even providers will misunderstand and misuse this information, so we're sort of waiting for appropriate education, and most of all, that the harms and costs will outweigh the benefits. What is the clinical utility and cost effectiveness of the notion that we would use genomics in everyday medicine? And I am not a laboratory geneticist, I am a public health geneticist. In that sense, my everyday work for the past couple of decades has been on looking at the benefits, risks, and costs. And this is my core team, and as you'll see, we have several hundred other people working on these various projects. So the question I get up and ask myself and my team every single day is, what are the benefits? What are the medical, behavioral, and economic benefits of using unanticipated findings from genomic sequencing? Because genomic sequencing is going to be next to nothing soon to perform and to analyze. But the question is, how will we use it in the care of medicine? I've worked in this area for 20 or 30 years. One of the projects I'm most proud of is that about 12 or 15 years ago, we were the very first to sequence apparently healthy adults, just like you and me, people who had no reason to be sequenced. And we called this the MedSeq project, and we did it in the context of a randomized clinical trial. And we did this in a way that we randomized volunteers into a sequencing arm and a non-sequencing arm. We ignored genetic counselors, and we gave the information directly to primary care docs, although we created a nice safety net for them. And the very first thing we actually had to do before we could even proceed was figure out a way to filter and interpret all of these many variants that you can get out of a human genome in you and me. There are 5 million variants that we can differ between each other. You can automate that pipeline with public databases till you get down to 100 to 300 variants, but then you have to actually distinguish in sometimes semi-automated and sometimes quasi-manual ways exactly which variants you're going to report. And we created what is now, I think, fairly straightforwardly accepted as a kind of protocol for which variants to select and which variants to report in people who are not ill themselves, but people who are at risk. And so we created this sort of idea of an axis between making sure that we were selecting genes that have excellent gene disease validity, not something for which there was a hypothesis. We're not discovering new genes in this context. We're reporting genes that are well understood, so they have good evidence. As those of you who work in laboratories may know, there are 5 categories of classification for the interpretation of genes, and whereas we might explore variants of uncertain significance in a diagnostic context, in a screening context, we would not report those back. We would only report back pathogenic and likely pathogenic genes, variants. And of course, we would lean toward conditions with actionability, conditions that we can do something about. Now, by the way, that's a very different term to different people. For some people, that means giving a medication. For other people, that means an appropriate surveillance. And for others, it just means knowledge to help an adult or a child know what to do, what to anticipate. But we'll get back to that in a minute. Now, importantly, it's easy to imagine our primary care doctors being completely overwhelmed by this kind of information. It's not something they've necessarily trained in, but we actually trained up a set of primary doctor volunteers on a 1-page report for whole genome sequencing. And this 1-page report had a section on monogenic disease risks, on pharmacogenomics, on recessive carrier traits, and even on blood types. And what we found was absolutely startling. What we found was that 20% of these apparently healthy adults were carrying a monogenic disease risk. Now, they didn't have the disease. In fact, they might never have the disease because it's a risk, it's not a diagnosis. But think about that for a minute. That means if this is true, and it has been validated in other groups, 20% of you in this audience are carrying a dominant variant associated with a monogenic disease or 2 copies of a recessive variant associated with a recessive disease. And that means that at some point in your life, you are at a tremendous risk, much higher than the people sitting around you, for developing that condition. Now, did the primary care doctors get overwhelmed with this? In fact, no. With a modest amount of education and a little bit of practice in working on this, they were able to manage these reports and talk to their patients quite well. Look, you don't have to be a nuclear physicist to read an MRI report. You just have to be able to read it and interpret it and bring it into your medical care. And by the same token, I'm sorry, my fellow geneticists, but you don't have to be a geneticist to use a genomic report. That's something we've told ourselves, and it won't stand up in a world where there's not enough geneticists and genetic counselors to go around. There's also a narrative that this will break the bank, that this will be so expensive that we'll never be able to afford the follow-up when we follow these patients. But as you'll see in several contexts, we believe that's not true. There is so much noise in spending that when we actually measured how much was spent for each of the people coming through our MedSeek project, there was a fair amount spent. There is more spent on people who have genomic risk factors, but it's not extreme. And I'll make the case that it's a value question. Do we find enough to actually change the course of their prognosis and make it worthwhile to society? Now, you may be asking, what about this narrative of catastrophic psychological distress? In this and in so many others of our experiments, we have found, in fact, that there is no significant psychological distress I know that's counterintuitive, but the truth is that the people, at least at this stage, who volunteer to have their genome evaluated have already gone through a kind of mental calculus, and they have already self-selected for their own psychological ability to manage this. Now, in a world where everyone was able to get this, things might be different, and I don't mean to be cavalier about this. But that narrative, whether it's adults or children, that we're somehow going to devastate people's psychology is simply not true. Now, our findings looked at 6,000 genes in apparently healthy adults. And as I say, we found that 20% of these adults were carrying a monogenic or biallelic recessive risk factor, that over 90% were carrying recessive genes, which could be important for people who want to have children. 80% are carrying an atypical response to one or more pharmacological categories, and a very high percentage are carrying a very high polygenic risk factor. If you add all this up, there's a lot of risk information here. And we did one other thing which hasn't gotten much publicity, but we published the very first ability to predict accurately the blood antigen markers from whole genome sequencing, which is a really interesting way of avoiding transfusion reactions. The military, for example, is quite interested in this. Now, as we were developing this line of research, the question of incidental findings started to emerge worldwide. Many people were getting sequenced for research, many people were getting sequenced for cause. The NICU babies were getting sequenced, the cancer patients were getting sequenced, both tumor and normal sequencing. And the question of incidental findings arose. If I sequence you for a heart problem, and you happen to be carrying a BRCA mutation for breast and ovarian cancer, do I look for it? Do I stumble upon it? And if I find it in any which way, am I obligated to tell you about it? And very often, the prevailing notion was no, we're not going to look for it, and we're not going to talk about it, and we're not going to tell you about it. Because we were pretty much honoring what we call the right not to know. And our research and our policy making has suggested a different course on that. We have argued, and I think in the United States now won the argument, that there should be a proactive approach to incidental, or what we're now calling secondary findings. And the way this evolved was, as I told some of you yesterday, I came to genomics in mid-career. And so I had some seniority, but I didn't have any enemies yet. So they put me in charge of a very controversial committee, the committee to decide how we were going to manage incidental findings in clinical sequencing. And after 2 years of pulling people together, I came up with a proposal to actually create a list of genes, in this case 56 genes, which became the ACMG list, the American College of Medical Genetics and Genomics. Now look, this isn't a rule, it's just a recommendation. It was extremely controversial when it first launched. People from all over the world were largely against it. But I am pleased to say that it has stood the test of time, and at least in the US, has become part and parcel of everyday work. And this list has evolved from version 1 that we created to now version 3.2, which has about 84 genes. And it's very simple. Anytime you sequence an adult or a child for any reason, this recommendation is that the laboratory should proactively look for this list of genes, look for pathogenic and likely pathogenic variants, and report them back to the family. And it's an opt-out, not an opt-in. So sure, the family can refuse it, they should be able to, but otherwise it's a secondary finding. Just like if I'm riding my bike on the streets of Riga, I fall off my bike, I get a chest x-ray to look for a rib fracture, and you see a shadow on my lung. When you see that shadow, we're not going to have a big debate about whether you're going to report it to me or not. We're going to tell me about it, and then we're going to contextualize that in terms of whether I'm a smoker, how old I am, whether I've traveled to a country with fungal infections, or exactly what's going on. And that's the same sort of parallel context. We're not using genomics in this way anymore for diagnosis. We're using it for risk stratification. And if we imagine sequencing populations, this is a form of what you might call opportunistic screening. You've got the sequence done, you might as well screen it for a set number of genes. But what about moving that out into the population? That's more population-based screening, and for that you need to ultimately decide on how many genes you want, and that's going to tell you what percentage of the population you might be able to identify as at risk. So for example, if you're looking at the so-called 10 genes in the CDC Tier 1, which is BRCA1 and 2, Lynch syndrome genes, familial hypercholesterolemia, you're looking at 1% of the population, maybe in some enriched populations a little higher. If you're looking at the version 2 of the ACMG list, we have very good data that suggests that 2.7% of the population is going to be carrying a pathogenic mutation in one of those 59 genes. If you look at some of the commercial screening panels that are out there, you can bump that up even higher. And as I said, in our MedSeq project, this gets even higher. So this is kind of startling. This is almost unbelievable how much pathogenicity or potential pathogenicity we're all carrying. Now, this redounds to a question in terms of the research projects. We've got people in the room from the beautiful and very forward-looking Estonian biobank. I believe there's discussion of a large biobank evolving here. If you build a giant biobank and you do array-based testing or sequencing of that biobank, what, if any, are your obligations to return results in that biobank, right? Can you expand this type of thinking there? So we've done this with a number of biobanks. In fact, the Mass General Brigham biobank is one. And if you're thinking of doing this, I'd really recommend this paper, which we sweated blood to write, which tells you about exactly how we went about trying to return results in our Mass General Brigham biobank. Now, that biobank had a combination of array-based testing and sequencing, and one of the insights was that about 42% of the array-based calls were wrong. So if you're going to do array-based testing, you're going to have to truly validate whatever you find before you would imagine returning it. It also showed us that if you don't do the research sequencing or testing in a way that meets regulatory criteria for returning, then you have to recontact participants. And you can see, I don't know if you can read these small numbers, but the number of contact attempts, it took us 5, 10, 15, 20 contact attempts to either get people to agree to receive their results or get them to say, no, I don't want my results. It was a tremendous amount of work. And as we did this, and this is all in the paper, we found people who were ineligible, who were deceased, who dropped out. We sent certified letters. We sent a secondary sample kit to try to get their samples back in again. Some people said, no, I don't want it, and then came back later and said, yes, I do want it. It's an incredible mess. If you have the ability to build a biobank, it will cost you a bit more, but if you have the ability to build a biobank, and you have the ability to actually use clinical grade testing at some point in your biobank so that you don't have to revalidate and retest people who you want to return results to, I really urge you to consider that on the front end. But when you do that, you find remarkable things. Here is just a few cancer predisposition genes, and we found that more than half of the people carrying cancer predisposition genes did not have this previously discovered in their EHR or in any portion of their health care. About half of those did in fact meet NCCN criteria for genetic testing, but had never been tested, a failure of the system as a whole, even in fancy Boston hospitals. And a quarter of those who did not even meet NCCN criteria. So basically, our medical system is failing utterly failing to find these mutation carriers. And so we need to think about the idea of DNA first. Now, you'll want to think about what the long-term prognosis is for these kinds of individuals. If some of you in the audience are carrying mutations, are you really at risk for the future? And for that, we looked at the Framingham Heart Study. The Framingham Heart Study is a study that's done DNA analysis on individuals who've been followed, in some cases, for 3 generations and over 50 years. And as you might expect, there was a dramatic increase in cancer for the people carrying cancer predisposition genes, cardiovascular disease for the people carrying cardiovascular disease. So that's not really a surprise, but sometimes we have to actually be clear that these are people at risk for these conditions. They really are. So this leads us to the question of what is exactly we're protecting when we're talking about protecting the right not to know? And so we've challenged that. That's a basic, fundamental tenet in conventional genomics, and I really believe that we have created too much of an exceptionalistic barrier or boundary or bubble around our field, and we should be treating genomic information a little bit more like we treat the rest of medical information. Also, I believe we should be much more aggressive about returning genomic results in individuals who've been sequenced for research. Do you realize about 100 million people in the world have been sequenced for research? And every survey ever done of research volunteers, those individuals, 70 to 80% of those individuals say, yes, I want you to look for medically important things in my DNA. Yes, I want you to return those. If we want to honor the donation of participants and patients who give us their DNA, we need to honor this by offering to return. Which all leads us to the question, if you've bought with me so far that it's good to imagine getting your own DNA analyzed, then it might even be better to do it as a child, because there's more of your life through which you can manifest the benefits of recognizing and treating and even avoiding genetic disease. So let's talk about newborn sequencing. This is not a new idea. For over 30, 35 years, we've been talking about this, predicting the day that in which it would come, and we haven't done it yet. Why? Well, it's expensive, it's ethically challenging. There's an entire ecosystem of newborns, conventional newborn screening that we don't really want to disrupt. But there's, in the United States, for example, there's millions of children born with genetic conditions, including predisposition to pediatric cancers, who are not recognized until it's too late, and who suffer an excruciating diagnostic odyssey. And why now, after 35 years? Well, partly the cost and understanding of genomics has come down, and partly there are new treatments. There are 700 new treatments for genetic conditions, and more coming on every time. We don't think of it this way because these treatments are in different bends. Some of them are medications. Some of them are fancy exon-skipping therapies. Some of them are still stem cell transplantations, and some are simply diets. The number one genetic disease that most rare disease specialists think should be screened for that is not is OTC, ornithine transcarbamylase deficiency. And you know what you have to do to avoid a devastating child in that? You just have to restrict their diet. That's all you have to do. It's not even fancy. You restrict the protein in the diet. So about 10 years ago, with much trepidation, we initiated the BabySeq project, the world's first project to comprehensively sequence apparently healthy newborns. And there's quite a team behind this, but a few individuals who have co-led this with me are of incredible importance. And the first thing we did, as one does in this situation, is ask people, do you want this information? And in our surveys, and frankly in every survey ever done, if you frame the question straightforwardly, do you want genetic information that could benefit your child's health, 70 to 80% of people say yes. In fact, if you actually ask them, do you want genetic information that is completely untreatable, but that will predict something about your health or your child's health, 40 to 50% of people say yes. This is, if we want to respect the autonomy of our patients, this is something our patients want. Next, we had to curate the gene list. I've talked to you about, how you select these genes. We did this in a way that leaned into disease gene validity, as I mentioned before, leaned into elevated penetrance, the probability that a child would get the disease, and leaned into early onset, but was not fully restricted to these. There's an entire paper on this if you're interested, but we came up with about 900 genes. And in this, we did something very controversial. We added back in a few genes for what you might consider the common, rare adult onset cancers, like BRCA1 and BRCA2. This is a somewhat in contrast to prevailing ethical thought about the autonomy of children not to understand that information, but I'll show you why in a minute we think that was worthwhile. We then did, again, a randomized clinical trial. By the way, this is hard to do. It's easier if you go to a family and say, would you like to participate in a clinical trial where your child is going to get sequenced? That's a fairly straightforward yes-no question. It's a much harder question if you go to a family and you say, would you like to have your child randomized into something where we're going to take blood, make your new beautiful baby scream by taking their blood, and it's really controversial, there might be discrimination or privacy concerns. Oh, and by the way, half of you aren't even going to get it. It's just a randomized clinical trial. So it was kind of tough to recruit, but we did. We recruited several hundred families, small sample size, but look, even in those families, we found remarkable results. Now, less than 20% because it wasn't 5,000 or 6,000 genes, it was only 1,000 genes. But now it's still 11% of babies were having monogenic or biallelic mutations. And here's the interesting thing. These are absolutely healthy babies, no sign of genetic conditions. But when you look at them again, take a second look, in light of the DNA finding, you find subclinical, unrecognized, underdiagnosed, or misdiagnosed features of the disease in question that is already underway. Think about that for a second. It's a whole new way of discovering not future disease, but ongoing disease. For example, this elastin mutation is associated with supravalvular aortic stenosis and a narrowing of the aorta. This absolutely perfect baby, we did an echocardiogram, that aorta was abnormally narrowed. Now, that's a glass half full, glass half empty moment, isn't it? Because you could say, well, maybe that baby's never going to have a problem, and now I've unnecessarily worried the family. That's true. But you could also say if that baby goes out and starts having fatigue or fainting spells or any kind of symptom that might have taken years to hone in on, we have a direct line of sight to a risk factor that could shorten the diagnostic odyssey. Of course, these babies carry recessive carrier traits, many more than you could get even from a standard panel. And to that question of catastrophic psychological distress, once again, the randomized clinical trial format, using validated measures of anxiety, depression, parent-child bonding, suggests no distress whatsoever. Let me repeat that. No distress whatsoever. That's not to say, look, the first 5 minutes or first day that you tell a parent their child is carrying a mutation, of course there may be some anxiety and some upset, but it very quickly resolves. Parents switch into, okay, great, I'm glad I know this, what can we do about it type of mode. And we believe this is going to be true for all sectors of society. We do not think this is an education question. We think this is a psychological question. And so we are testing that with a second round of disclosure now. The costs, it's very important to model these costs, but it's even better if you can measure these costs, which we have measured, and you can see that the costs are not dramatically higher in terms of healthcare spending, nor are they dramatically higher even when these children are sent for follow-up. And in the United States care system, this is actually a good thing because healthcare centers want to generate revenue from these tests. In a system where it might be more state-supported, these are costs that the society would have to bear, but then the question becomes, are we picking up enough ways to intervene so that it's a value-based care and it's worthwhile? We've talked about this being actionable. We've talked about this being treatable. What do we mean by that? Well, that's a very controversial question, but if you take a sort of semi-quantitative view of it, we designed this cartoon to say the disease severity and penetrance here, and the intervention efficacy and tolerability here. So a perfect actionable condition would be a perfect diamond shape. And a condition that was very not actionable would have a shape like this. Well, remember, we're in a world where things which were previously not actionable are becoming actionable with the development of new pharmacological treatment. That's the world we're in right now. It's happening really fast. And so as it turns out, the conditions, the genes we discovered, even in our first sample of baby-seq families, even in these healthy babies, were all met the actionability criteria of this semi-quantitative scale. We've also feel like we're redefining what penetrance means. Penetrance, for those of you who don't live and breathe this, is the probability that if you carry the condition, you're going to develop some features of the disease. And while penetrance is in the moment, in this momentary slice of time, is very low, penetrance over a lifetime might be much higher. And we can also think of a different axis, which is penetrance of the family unit, because in some of these situations, the baby was carrying the mutation, the parent that was carrying the same mutation already had features of the disease which had been misdiagnosed. In some situations, the baby had features and the parent had features. In some situations, the baby had features, but the parent did not. So you're going to find all these different constellations, but insight about one family member gives you insight about other family members in an extremely valuable way. And I told you that we looked for breast and ovarian cancer and Lynch syndrome genes in these babies, something quite controversial. These 3 babies, we found them. Obviously, those babies are at risk for these adult onset cancers, but not for many years, whereas there are 3 parents who were turned out to be carriers. By coincidence, it turned out to be 3 mothers. All had risk-reducing surgeries in the 5 years following this discovery in their babies. And you're going to hear a video from one of those moms. So to wrap up, I imagine, many of us imagine, I hope you can imagine, a world in which genomic information maybe is given at various times in the cycle of life, depending on the various needs, but is there to help us at every stage of our life cycle, our life journey. I'd like to play for you just a 2-minute video of the voices of some of the parents in the baby-seq study.
We just thought, like, why isn't this done for everybody?
I think part of the attraction of participating in the study was having that information and how empowering that information would be.
We just want our children to be healthy and happy. And if we could know that what could potentially be harmful to them, we can hopefully act on it.
When we got the results for my son, we had learned that he was a carrier of something called supravalvular aortic stenosis. You know, you think about those high school football players that just fall over and die in a football field because they had a heart condition that nobody knew about. So I was like, oh, but they had only known if there was some way to know. So I always kind of comforted myself by thinking, at least I know.
The most critical thing that they found with my son is that he has the BRCA2 mutation. I was told that I had a significant mutation that is a high propensity for a couple different types of cancers and that I should start to look into that. I would rather my boys have me for longer than me get something that I know is a higher risk for me. Overall, just so happy that we have opted in, that we know our risks, that we're taking action steps to, extend our life.
Let's be real. I mean, when you have a newborn, it's kind of like your whole world changes. So knowing a little bit of information is going to be helpful down the road.
It was a really positive experience for our family, and we would participate again if we had the opportunity.
It has been a journey that we are happy that we opted into.
And I just felt more so empowered to have the information than not. And I think that, with everything going on in the world, with all our resources, we should know more so that we can do our best for our kids.
So this is obviously represents the work of an enormous team that I'm privileged to lead, and my co-leaders in this have been Alan Beggs and Ingrid Holm at Boston Children's Hospital. Some of you may know them, along with quite a number of other very, very important collaborators. I'll end up by telling you that when we started this work 10 years ago, we felt very alone. And that was exciting, but also somewhat intimidating. A few years back, as other groups around the world were beginning to approach this for in a research method, we started an international consortium on newborn sequencing, and we've now created this with people from Genomics England, David Bick and Rich Scott and others from Genomics England, and we have an executive director. You can join this either as an individual or as an institution, absolutely free. You can join our calls. This is a way of getting people around the world who are interested in this together academically and sharing protocols, consents, gene lists, outcome measures, and ultimately in ways that are appropriately consented, even data. We had our first ICONS meeting in October of last year at Boston, at the Boston Museum of Science. It was a tremendous success. I just came here from our most recent meeting in London, which was fantastic. And I hope you'll all consider coming to the ICONS meeting next year in October. I believe it's going to be 10th and 11th in New York City. So to wind up, look, there are a lot of reasons we can come up with, many, many reasons we do come up with why this isn't going to work. And all of these issues create a sort of negative feedback loop for the implementation of genomic medicine. I think if we push on this together, we generate evidence, we change minds and hearts, we create stories of families whose children or even their adult lives have been saved, we can create a positive feedback loop that moves genomic medicine forward. We can create new national and international trends. And we can find this middle ground between the extremes that somehow genomics is a crystal ball that's going to tell you everything. Of course, that's not true. Or that it's worthless. It's not going to tell you anything. That's not true either. We can create a meaningful middle ground that uses genomics on a population basis for risk stratification, prevention, and better health for our entire population. Please join me in helping to do that. And if you're interested in hearing more about any of this work, or about the startup company that I mentioned at the beginning, I would love to share that information with you. All of our work is available. Every one of our papers is available on our website in full text. We'd love for you to follow us on social media, and I'd be honored to hear from you if you're interested in writing me or getting a copy of these slides. Thank you very, very much for having me here in Riga.
Thank you, Robert, for this really thought-provoking keynote. I'm sure it will really take some time to digest all of the important messages and concepts you conveyed. So, and I hope we'll have an opportunity to catch up during the breaks and to discuss it vis-a-vis. But all of the speakers repeatedly emphasize that everything we do and discuss here is for the sake of the patients. Therefore, last but not least, I'm delighted to introduce a distinguished guest and passionate advocate of patient rights in the advancement of precision medicine, Bettina Ryll. Bettina's title is dedication to well-being of the cancer patients, and her invaluable contribution also to the EU Cancer Mission Board have made her as a pivotal figure in the field of healthcare and precision medicine. As a patient advocate, she brings unique and deep personal perspective to our discussion today, and her advocacy work and involvement in shaping the policies and initiatives at the European level have been really instrumental in bringing the patient's voice to the forefront of the precision medicine. So we are privileged to have Bettina with us today to share her insights and experiences. So let me join me in giving a warm welcome to Bettina Ryll.
Thanks for the kind introduction, Valts, and thank you all in the audience for not leaving the room, because that usually happens when the patient advocates come onto the agenda. And I thought I give you, after this quite high-level potential, what we could be doing, a rather narrowed down version of what is already happening. And if you vaguely remember one of Robert's slides, there was a little tiny box about cancer being one of the areas where we use genomic sequencing. And I just counted. I myself have been in this field for 20 years now. So I started my PhD in molecular biology after my medical training in London, and that was in autumn 2002. And in April 2003, the human genome was published. So I was just there at the very beginning when we all got excited and the technology started moving into the lab. And at the time, my big plan had always been to become a pediatric surgeon, and this is how I ended up doing a PhD in there, and had always kind of hoped to be combining my medical training with a more fundamental type of research. What I would have never have anticipated is that it would become so personal to me, because in 2011, my husband was diagnosed with metastatic melanoma out of nowhere and died of it in 2012. And this is how I ended up founding a European patient network in melanoma and using everything I'd ever learned in my life for cancer. I can tell you no one moves into this because they had nothing better to do. So I would like to share a little bit what has happened then and what has followed, mainly me joining the first EU Cancer Mission Board. I was one of the 15 experts working on the recommendations to the European Commission, and I worked mainly on the recommendation for personalized medicine. Something that I have noted and that I am passionate about is that when I started this network, and I am definitely Western European, I'm German, so I'm born in Germany, very close to the inner German border. I studied in France, I did my PhD in the UK, I ended up for a postdoc in Sweden, where I still live. But we really fast and rapidly noted the differences that we saw across Europe. Melanoma is a disease that when my husband was diagnosed, 5-year survival was 5% at 5 years. Now, thanks to new drugs, we have a survival of about 50%. However, when the drugs came through, access to drugs was highly unequal in Europe, and you could see that a country borders would define whether you had a chance to live or to die. And that was something that was one of the things that I, as a European citizen, couldn't accept. It cannot be that a few kilometers, because Europe is such a small space, define whether you live or die. And I'm joined in that, and as we in Riga here, I would like, in case you are not aware of them, and I was very, very happy in this fantastic ecosystem that we have shown on the very, very first presentation, and congratulations to the Latvian colleagues for actually setting up a full precision medicine implementation ecosystem in your country. In the center of there is the Onco Alliance, which is a fantastic network of patient advocates who have pulled themselves together in a very short amount of time, and I was just here last year on a fantastic conference on equality and cancer care. And I would like to show you that statement of my colleague Olga Valcina, who has actually put it exactly on spot. And I do believe what we in Europe especially should be passionate about is that survival in cancer should not be like winning the lottery. We need something that is strategic and that helps all of us to move towards a healthcare system where everyone has a chance. We as Europeans, and we often only realize when we leave Europe, is something that unites us, however much we're different and however much we like to stress our differences, is that we believe in universal healthcare being a right. Health is something that is a citizen's right, not a benefit that comes with a job. And that means that in our systems, we have to think about how we make this accessible to everyone. I always say anyone can do fancy technology in a tertiary cancer center in the capital of a country, but get that to every patient in your country, in the periphery, in the countryside, the rural areas. That's where the real challenges start, and that's the ambition. And in the second part, I would like now to talk a little bit about what is currently ongoing and what I am now spending kind of the other half of my life on. So I'm currently, because of that, I was on the Cancer Mission Board. I got into contact with other innovation ecosystems that are very similar to what you are trying to do in terms of precision medicine implementation. Do this also at a national base. And we have such a project in Sweden. It's called Vision Zero Cancer. You see the logo on the top. And they have a precision medicine implementation test bed, which is called Test Bed Sweden for Precision Health. As that, we are part of 2 European projects like PCM4U that helps to unify access to molecular testing across European societies with a dedicated ambition to get it to everyone in a country, and now build joint cohorts between different trials that are built on the DRIP trial that originally was published in the Netherlands. So these are initiatives that are very concretely moving potential, promise, hope into direct everyday care. And this is something that, as from a patient advocacy perspective, something that has been my driving force since getting into this. It cannot be that we are able to do great technology in our labs, that we're leading edge in science, and that we are unable to turn this into the benefit for our societies. For my husband and people like that who were diagnosed around that, it will be too late. But we have seen how much progress we can make if we're successful in implementing fast, rapidly, and effectively. So I would really now here leave you with this as the last slide. This is basically an abstract model of what you have seen in concrete detail, what our Latvian colleagues have built. These are the components that we have to think about when we want to get precision medicine into our societies. Because those of you who are familiar how drugs are usually approved, and as patient advocates, we are concerned about access. And access issues are nothing but implementation gone wrong. So we have been following where do our products, where do things get stuck? And if you look at it, you will realize that precision medicine is a departure from our way of thinking of old. When I was at med school, evidence-based medicine was the big thing. And we think of populations as unified groups, as homogeneous groups. And then we put I would say if you were a cohort, I would say, well, 60% survival is you there, you're gonna live and you're gonna die. That we sell as evidence. And as a medic, I thought that was solid evidence. You would probably personally care very much on which side of the room you would be sitting now. And that is the difference between group-based medicine and precision medicine. We start to individualize and we start to tailor on a single individual, while our processes are still designed to deal with large groups. So the way we make clinical decisions, how we approve drugs, how we look at cost effectiveness as drugs, how we pay for drugs and how we use them is based on group-based thinking. So if we want to shift that, we have to have a systems thinking and we have to tie and shift everything at the same time. So this is something that I really believe we have to do together, and that's why congratulations once more. It's impressive that you have managed to have all the stakeholders in the room. And before I would like to leave you with a thank you, and in ways you contact me, that's my email address. Something that has struck me, especially in advocacy, is that often my colleagues from the eastern side of Europe say, yeah, you in the West, you have the resources, it's easy to say. I would like to leave you with a quote from our Estonian colleagues who I think are leading in Europe when it comes to digitalization. And the Estonian colleague would ask, why were you so successful in implementing that in your country while others have been trying with much more resources for many years and haven't succeeded? And he said, we had 2 advantages. We had no resources, so it had to be cheap, and we had no old structures to replace. So please think about your opportunities and advantages. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bettina. Your commitment on the fight against cancer should really serve as an inspiration to us all. So as we bring this session of our Precision Medicine Forum to a close, I'd like to express my gratitude to all of the distinguished speakers, organizers, and attendees. The welcoming words, the insights, the expertise and dedication we could consume this morning have set the stage for inspiring and productive event. So thank you for participation in this opening session, and we look forward to enriching discussions during the day, the insights throughout this conference on both days. So see you after the short break. So next session starts at 10:30, yeah? Correct. Thanks.
you.